everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Shellie Geigle with J&S Hobbies and Crafts, and I have finally finished my Stamperia House of Roses large album tutorial. This is 9.5 inches by 11 inches, and the spine after wrapping is 3.25 inches. Now this is a huge album and would make for a wonderful wedding album or an everyday album or specialty album. For me, I'll be using it as an everyday album. And I'm just so happy with how this turned out. Now this album was based off of the wedding album that I made for my son Darren and Jessica. So the designs in here are some of the designs you saw in about a year ago when I showed that album. All right, let's open this up. What we have here is a fold out, but up front here is a clear plastic sheath so that you can slide a nice big photograph right behind and protect it. Right now I just slid in a folder into there. So this opens up and we have a large pocket over here, and I threw a picture mat and a tag. Over here is another fold out, but there's a large matting here to place either a large photo or two smaller ones. Behind here you can tuck a picture mat. We have a little folder down here, and then we have a small pocket. And I have a couple tags back there. So I'm going to scoot this over so you can see. This folds out, and look, I'm just going to slide it over so you can see what I'm doing here. We left this alone so you can just place your photos. Over here is another large pocket. And I just stuck a picture mat and made a little folder. Over here, what we have is a tuck area back behind this big magnetic folder. And we do make this picture mat together in the tutorial, but it just slides right on back behind. And this opens up and you get this. And this is large enough to place a photo, even maybe two or smaller ones down there. And then of course we have that. Next page. What we have over here is a magnetic folder. It folds out, you can place your photos, and it's also a tuck. And I believe we made this one as well, this folder, in the tutorial together. So it's just quite lovely. The paper is amazing. Over here we have a pocket back behind, and this is a large book, and this book will hold about 14 photos, and I'll show you that. But I just tucked in the back pocket a couple things, and this I used a solid colored cardstock, so that is not on the materials list, but if you have some, that would be helpful since there's so many pages in here. And I used kind of a neutrally color. So as you can see, you can get a lot of photos in there. Coming to our next page, what we have are two pockets, but what we have on the front is another pocket, and it's clear. And what you can do is slide a portrait or a photo right in front, and it's protected by the plastics. Right now I just slipped those in there so you can kind of see. In the back, here are the pockets, and I just put some folders in there that I made. Over here is a large pocket, and it's spaced out so you can get more in there. And I just stuck some tags and a couple picture mat, or I got a folder going here. This page we left alone so you can just place your photos. And it's also so we can accommodate what we did over here. This is really thick. This is magnetic and it pops up, and you have a place to put a small photo here, here, and in here. This will now fold out and you have this huge spot to place your photos. And then this comes down and you have a small pocket, or a good sized pocket actually, down here, and I just slipped something in there. Here is the waterfalls, and the idea behind this is you can get your larger picture here, and if you have the Polaroid little Instamat camera, it will accommodate that size of a photograph. If you don't, that's okay, or if you don't have smaller pictures, because the next way you can use this is you place a photo here and you journal right next to it. Same thing. And there are a lot. So this waterfall will accommodate, I think it is 1, 2, 3, I think 16 photos per side, or 16 journaling spots over here. Okay, next page we left alone because of the spacing needed over here for this. And this will hold a lot of photographs. And what this is an expanding envelope type deal, so that you can put a ton of picture mats in there. Right now, I'm going to tilt this up a bit so you can see, and this is magnetic, but as you can see, you can get a lot of stuff. And all I have in there right now are my leftover cuttings for more picture mats until I'm ready to use this. But as you can see, it can expand out, and we have a good spacing back here, and you just kind of latch it back. So that is what we will be making today. Let's move on into the materials list. So what you're going to need is 2 of your Stamperia House of Roses 12 by 12 paper pack. This is gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So 2 of these. Now we also are going to need some single sheets here, and I've got 2 of each of these. I've got 2 of the one with the ivy on the back. It's the tags. 2 of this print, and I'll have the links on the materials list so you can find these. We'll be using the prints for that. Anyway, these are quite lovely. And then we'll get 2 of these. Next, you're going to want 2 sheets of the clear plastic. I know it's hard to see right now. These are the 12 by 12 size. You'll want some Tyvek. And Tyvek is a material that is very hard to tear. So this is what's going to keep our spine and our covers together from separating from down the road, years down the road. You'll want to get some 110-pound cardstock. 8.5 by 11 is perfect. And this is what our inner pages will be using, as well as fold outs, pockets, and so forth. I'm going to be using the American Crafts, and this is white, and it's 12 by 12, and it's 80 pound. This is what I'm going to use to wrap my album, as well as do my picture mats with. You're going to either need 2 or 3, depending if you have any scraps left over chipboard. So 2 are for the covers, and there's not enough left over for the spine width. So that's why I said bring in a 3rd sheet if you need it. If not, if you have at least a 3 1/8 by 9.5 piece of scratch, you won't need your 3rd piece. Adhesives. So adhesives, for the lace that I'm using, I'm going to use the Beacon Fabric Tack. And the art glitter glue, it does not have any glitter in it, but this is what we're going to use for other applications throughout the tutorial. Double-sided tape, we definitely want this. 3/8 and 1/4. You may want to get an extra 1/4 inch. Now I want to go over some things that we're gonna need, and then I'm gonna go over extras. Things extra I'll be putting in my album, but you don't have to. So it's all according to taste. So one thing you are gonna want is magnets, and I'm gonna have 2 packs in this. These are the large basic gray, and these work really well. Some white 1/8 inch ribbon. I don't sell this, but most people have this in their stash, and I'll be using white, just something most of us have on hand. The bling on the roll is what I'm going to be using in this album. This is a single strand, and not only can I use this for my trim, but I can cut off little pieces to add to my lace to really dress it up. Now this is optional, and this is if you're making your flowers, but I'm going to be using some frills on the inside of my flowers, and I may be adding in some little bling gems, and they're about 1/4 inch. We do sell those in our store, but if you have some little bling gems you can add to the center. You can even cut some of these and place them in the center to save some money. Winkostella, that's extra. I will be putting Winkostella on my flowers to shimmer them up. And I'm going to be using glossy accents, which will stiffen my flowers up as well as put a glossy sheen. And again, that is entirely up to you what you would like to do if you want to do those extras. Another thing is I'm going to be using some flat rhinestone, and this is absolutely optional. You don't have to. Check your stash. A lot of us have little flat back pearls, whether they be domed, whether they be fancy, and I'm going to be using the Ivory Dome 3/8 in this that I've had sitting in my little thing here, and I might add in some other styles. So just look in your stash for what you have on that. Now one thing you may want to incorporate into your album is on the cover, like me, I'm going to be using a frame. This is the Frank Garcia by Prima Chantilly Royal. If you have a different style frame, whether it be some other brand frame, you can use it. So, or you can die cut your own frame if you're a die cutter. On the cover of my album, what I'll be using is like a 2.5 inch sheer. And I might be using 2 different styles here, and I might incorporate it inside my album. I don't sell this. This came from my stash. If you don't have anything with something on it, you can use just the plain sheer. It does not have to have the wire in it like mine. All this is for the cover is to group it in the middle to kind of give a flared out at the bottom and the top. Okay, so that's optional. You do not have to have exactly what I have here. So just check your stash. I won't be using any trim dies or trim punches on this. Instead, I'm going to be using lace as my trim. I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch. The one I'm using is called Flower Trail. And I'll use a 1/2 inch Venice Scallop. I'm going to use the 1 inch Flower Draped. And this one is called the Fancy Draped, I believe. It's 1 1/4. It's very pretty. We have the 1 1/4 Flower Banner and the 2 inch Celebrations. Now this is where you can save a lot of money. Grab into your stash of lace, bring it out, and you can save some money instead of having to buy some new. You will want, though, 1 yard of a 1/2 inch. And you'll be using that for along the sides of our pages. So I'll be using bits and pieces off some of these other ones, and that's why I say look in your stash and see what you can come up with. For my flowers, I am using die cut, and I'll be shaping and inking this. I had this left over from a previous project, but I believe it's a mixture of the small wild rose die and the Oakberry Lane die and stamp set, where I got my leaves and all that. So that is what I will be using. I'll also be using, as far as colors go, there is spun sugar, there is squeezed lemonade, and I believe it's milled lavender. Oh, this is a good one to try it on. Yeah, milled lavender is another color in here. So those are what I'll be using for my leaves. I am using the crushed olive and peeled paint. And if you need help with flower shaping, I did just put out a tutorial that is a beginner's inking and shaping of 2020. That can help you with that. One thing that you're going to want are the envelopes for our one envelope page. And check your stash. I don't sell these, but a lot of you card makers already have it. This is the card or the envelopes. You're going to want 7 of them. These are 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. So they're the ones that fit your 5 by 7 cards that you make, the larger cards. That's it, guys. Let's get started on building this, and I think you're really going to like how this comes out. Whether you use the same lace as me or not, or you're adding in the extras that you have in your stash. Let's start building the album. Let's go over the pre-cuts that were on the pre-cutting guide materials list to double check ourselves. So Tyvek. You needed 2 pieces of Tyvek that were 1.5 inches by 9.5 inches. You needed 2 chipboard covers, 9.5 by 11. You needed 1 chipboard spine piece that was 3 1/8 by 9.5. And you needed 4 pieces, and these were, let me write this down because some of you are more visual or hearing impaired. You needed 4 pieces that were 8.5 by 11, and these were our inner pages, and you needed 4 of those. And we had some scoring on these. So what we did was we cut 4 of them, and on each one we laid this on our scoring board. So we were 11 inches across. At 5/8 inch we scored each one of these pieces. So you can go ahead and fold on those score lines too right now. That's all for the scoring. Let's go over the rest of what we needed here. We wanted 2 sheets, and I have this on my 110 pound, that are 8.5 by 10.5. These are inside covers over the chipboard. And we also had, looks like, 6 pieces that were 1/2 inch by 9.5 inch. So there's 6 of these guys, and we labeled these reinforcements. And when we get there, I'll explain when we're building the album what that is. And then on either 65 pound or the American Crafts 80 pound like I'm using, what you're going to want is for our album wrap 2 pieces that are 11 by 11.5, 1 piece that is 5 3/4 by 11.5. So let's begin, and I think we're going to start with our album wrap. So you should have 3 pieces, 2 that are 11 by 11.5 album wrap, and then of course our 5 3/4 by 11.5 album wrap. Now the first thing that we want to do is grab our ruler so we are going the right way. So for instance, we need to be 11.5 inches going this way. So what I like to do, oh, looks like Tanner got a hold of my pencil here. Oh, pencil, right here. So I'm just going to put 11.5 at the top end of these, make sure I'm going right way. And of course we have this one. All right, let's start with these two. We're going to need our score tape. And I think I am going to use my 3/8 inch here. So on the side of each one of these large ones, we're going to place it right at the edge without going over, as best you can. And on this one, this is the other, we're going to place it right here without going over. Okay, here's a tip for those of you that are new. Anytime that you're going to be working with your score tape or even white cardstock, definitely wash and dry your hands before handling it. And the next thing that we need to do is definitely have to burnish. And what burnishing does is it gets all that air out from underneath your adhesive, and so that it does not get any air pockets underneath, because you get air pockets and then it can dry out and you can get liftage. Okay, so it's just on those two. What I like to do is grab something with a flat edge. So I'm going to grab my paper cutter. And what I'm going to do is take off the score tape backing from this. And while I was intermission and all that good stuff, Tanner helped himself to my desk, and he got into my little basket, you know, with all of my flat back pearls I showed you. Yeah. He took my basket and proceeded to head out to the living room and all over the place and dumped it. So I was able to salvage some of my stuff, and I am looking for my tools at this point. So hang tight. Okay, I found my tool here. And I'm going to take off the score tape backing off that large one there. And again, I'm not going to cut anything. All I'm doing here is using this flat edge so that I can stay straight by pushing that up. The next piece you're going to want is the smaller one. It's the 5 3/4. So I'm just going to push that right up there. I'm going to line this up and just go right over that score tape as best I can here. There we go. All right, I'm going to grab this other large piece. I'll just slide it in here to keep me straight. Take off the backing and try to get this on here straight. I think that's good. All right, let's burnish. I'm done with this. And if you get it a little off, it's okay. All right. We're going to need our chipboard spine, and what we're going to do is grab our pencil. Okay, if you notice, you can see the sides of that smaller width for your spine. We're going to set that in there even, side to side, leaving about a 1-inch space top and bottom. And I think that's good. And we're just going to draw around it. Now, the reason why I like to draw around my piece rather than just set it, eyeball it, is it helps me to get where I need to be. Okay, so I have that piece there. Let's grab our ruler, and we are going to measure over 3/16 of an inch. And I'll make a mark here and over here, 3/16. Let's grab our large piece. So we're just going to line that up right on that line, making sure we're straight. And you may come where you only have a little bit left over here, not quite 1 inch, but that's okay. It'll get wrapped around. And I think I'm fairly straight. And we will just draw. Just so that you have enough there to get around. Just need a little bit of a space there. And then our other one, we will do the same thing. Line it up, make sure you're even top to bottom as best you can, and we will draw. Okay, it's time to get our score tape out. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch, I think, for this. I think it'll be fine. And where is that thing? Here it is. What I like to first do is just go around the edges of my chipboard like a picture frame. Now, you don't have to wrap it around the edge like I did. You can tear it off and go. Sometimes when you do wrap, you'll get a little bulging there, but I just kind of go with it here. So we're just going to go around the outside edge. And we will do the same for this one. And what we're going to do is go one down the middle. And we'll go 2 on each side of that. I think we'll be okay. Alright, we'll be doing the same on this one. Let's grab our spine and we're going to go all the way around it. And then we'll go one down the middle. And we'll go one on either side of that. So I have both my chipboard covers done with the score tape, and I have this. Let's go ahead and start removing that score tape backing, and we're going to place it. Okay, so here we go. And I'll place my first one right in there, trying to keep that as straight as I can. Let's get our spine in there. Remember, you have to have a little space in there. And when you're doing this, just make sure that you are even when you're placing it with your other piece. And then for wrapping, now sometimes when we actually go to wrap albums, no matter how hard we try, sometimes we get the splits. And so I'm going to try and show you some techniques that might help you with that. I know it helps me. And again, make sure that you have that space in there. That looks pretty good. All right. I'm going to flip this over and I am going to burnish. Just trying to make sure all that gets down. Okay, so one thing we're going to want to do is try to help from getting the splits. So what I like to do is just kind of lift on the sides. I usually start there. And then once I've kind of helped bend it over with my hand, I'll take my tool. Now I don't like using the sharp edge. If you're using a tool like this, try to use the rounded edge or the side of yours. But what we're going to do is just kind of go like this to help it. And then we're just going to help it bend over. We're going to do that over here too. Kind of get it going with your hand and then with your tool just to help. Okay, and we'll do that up here. Just take your time. There's no rush. You can always pause the video. A lot of places you'll find where you get the splits is on seams. And so just be careful, and if you do, I'll show you a technique that we can possibly do to help us with that if we do get them. Just kind of, you know, work it. Okay, splits. I can already tell you that right here I'm going to have a little bit of a split right where that seam line is. So I will be showing you what to do for stuff like that, like I said. All right, let's grab our 3/8 inch. We'll take care of that in a minute. What we're going to first do with our 3/8 inch is we are just going to go right along the bottom of that chipboard on our cardstock all the way around the album. Okay, next thing we're going to want to do is on the outside of that. So we'll just take that all the way around. Now because we're kind of shorter on the sides, we might want to use our 1/4 inch. We can always overlap a little. Now before we can even wrap this down anyway, we still need our Tyvek. So we're going to get this all ready to go. All right, let's grab our scissors. Now you can see where the corner of your chipboard is. Now we're going to snip at an angle, but you'll leave about 1/8 inch away from that tip of your chipboard because we'll be tucking so we get a nicer wrap. So you can just clip all the way around. And you don't have to be precise on where you start. Just make sure you leave that. It'll come out okay. All right, let's grab our Tyvek, and we had 2 strips of that, and that is going to get laid right over these seams. And to help me, I'm just going to use my 3/8, and I'm just going to lay row after row and all the way over, completely covering this. If I need to use some of my 1/4 inch to fill in, I will. But I think I might be okay here. No, I'm going to want some 1/4 inch on the side there. Right along the edge. You'll definitely want to burnish all that down. And I don't like overhang, so that is going to get clipped off. Okay, let's do the same with this one. Okay, let's place it. Remove our score tape backing. And we're just going to lay this right over the seam. If it's not straight, that's okay. It's going to get covered up. Let's do that with this one. And we'll burnish. We are ready to start wrapping here. So we've got our Tyvek down. I think I will start with, I'm going to start with the sides here, I think, and then I'll do the top over. So just kind of release your score tape. You can remove all of it right now because we do need to get over into this other area. All right, let's start with the sides. So what you're going to want to do is you're just going to pull in your sides. And don't do it like stretch it because you've already done the conditioning on over here. Okay, so here's the thing down in the corner. What I want you to do, you can use your nail to poke it in. As you can see, kind of bring that in to the side. And you can do that up here. Just kind of bring it around, or you can use your tool to poke it in. Okay, we're going to do that over here too. We'll pull in the side, smooth that down, and then we can just use our tool to wrap it in to the side, or your nail, whichever it is that you prefer to use. Okay. Okay, let's do this. I like to start in the middle and press. And at those corners, I just press right on down on them. And you can see right where those seams are, I've got some splitting. And we'll tackle that, like I said, here in a minute. Okay. Let's turn this around and do the same thing. All right, what we're going to do right now is grab our inner spine cover. Don't fold your album just yet. What we're going to do is, you see where you can see the creases? If you need to put your nail right there and just kind of go right in the middle of that Tyvek over the separation of your album covers from your spine so you can see where that groove is, that'd be great. I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to grab my 3/8 inch score tape, and I'm going to go all the way around this piece like a picture frame. And we'll definitely want to clip off any overhang of score tape if we get it. And once we have this, all we're going to be doing is filling it in line by line so it's completely covered. And the reason why I do that is just to make sure that nothing gets missed, because this is an important part. This is what, when we lay it down, your hinges are going to be on. So we're just going to clip off any overhang here before I get started on the rest. And now we fill it in, just line by line. If you have to alternate in your 1/4 inch to make it lay all evenly, go ahead and do that. All right, let's burnish that, make sure all the air is out. Okay, let's grab our album. So what's going to happen with this is we are going to lay this evenly. See your little, where your little gussets are? We're just going to lay this over evenly, and it's going to be giving you a headspace. Now, one thing you're going to want to do, it's about a 1/2 inch, I believe. What you're going to want to do is just make sure that you have even amount here and here. So let's lay this. And if you are quicker than me and you get yours down, don't close your book yet. We're going to do that together because I want to make sure that your score tape is down before you do that. Burnish down really good, and so it doesn't bubble up. And that's why I don't use glue, especially for this, is because sometimes glue, you miss the edges, you can get bubbling when you bend the album in. So we're just gonna take our time here. And if you can't get your score tape off by that side, try the other side. All right, I'm stuck. All right, here I go. There's my gusset here and here. I'm just going to try and get it evenly, leaving about a 1/2 inch or so top and bottom as best I can, and place it. This is the time where this is so important that you actually make sure you burnish down every little bit of this. And sometimes you can hear crinkling when you're doing this. That's you getting the air out from underneath that tape in the paper. All right, place your hand on your spine and slowly pull it in your side. Now don't flip it all the way over because you will split yourself out. Your album is not meant for this to go over, at least not this design. Just a little bit. We'll do it over here. And at the end of the tutorial, I'll show you some things you can do too that will help you keep your album shut, right now it's brand new. It's very stiff. The more we work this and open and shutting it, the more it will relax, as you can see now. It's kind of relaxed. So let's tackle these splits if you have them or not. Make sure your fingertips are clean. Grab some of your clear glue. I'm using art glitter because I trust it. It's clear. I'm going to dab some glue in that spot. This is my first way of trying to fix this. Okay? And I'm just going to dab. Now you're not going to sit here forever and do it because you will start tearing. So once you got it on, just dab it down. I'm going to continue to do that over here, and I'm going to let it dry before I touch it again. I'm going to pull it over and dab. See? And I'm going to get it down here. And over here, I don't look so bad, but I am going to dab a little glue just in case. Right there. There was nothing going on there, but I'm going to just dab a bit. Okay. I'm going to leave this alone, let that dry. And then what we're going to do is grab our inner pages. And the last thing after that will be the reinforcements. So while my book is drying, I'm going to put this away, put my little pin in there. And what you're going to have is your inner pages here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and those are our inner pages. So with the peek up, I'm right-handed, so that helps me to do it on this side. If you're a left-handed, you would go like this and have your peek up over here. But we have 5/8 inch here of flap. We're going to first place this tape right to the right side of that crease. Don't get it on the crease, but just to the right. So just place that. Try to stay straight. And I will, of course, clip off any overhang. I'm also going to grab, hey, there's a flat back, my 1/4 inch, and I'll just overlap on the other side. And then all we're going to do is burnish really well. If you can see any score tape peeking over, you'll definitely need to clip that. So there's my first one. We're going to keep going and get this ready to go by doing the same thing. I have all the score tape on my inner pages. It's time to grab our book. It should be the glue's dry by now. So I'm going to show you first before we do this. So what I'm going to do is I'll be removing the score tape adhesive here, the backing. So here is my little flap. Here is that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up one side when the adhesive is off, and I am going to place this. Now when I place this, I'm going to stay even headroom. So you're going to see some of this white. Don't worry about it because we have stuff to cover that. So you're just going to place it, try to go even, up and down. And I will show you. So first things first, hold this up, and I'm going to butt it right up against. I'm going to try and stay even, top and bottom, with even amount. At least I'm going to try. And I will place it down and use my tool to smooth it down. Okay, we'll flip that. Here is the easy part. These now will all fall in line. When I remove this, I'll butt it up next to this, line it up with the page, and place it. Sometimes it's easier if you're overlapping score tape is to grab the one underneath, pull it, flatten down the other, and then grab the one that's on top. At least I found that to be true. So we have about 5/8 inch in between our pages, which is nice because that gives us plenty of room, wiggle room for embellishments and different things. Okay, last one right here. Line it up and place. And we will flip it over. So your hinging should look like this now. Okay, let's see here. We're going to place these and then we'll do our reinforcements. So I am going to erase this now. I don't have to because it gets covered with our decorative paper, but I'm going to. Okay, these I'm going to show you. We're going to be placing the score tape on this side. I'm using score tape. If you want to use glue, you can. However, I like score tape. So when we place this, now notice that our edges will get covered as well as this will get covered. What we're going to do is place this so that it's over to the left, just covering. It will leave you about 1/4 inch or so, 1/4 inch or so from your hinge. And you'll line it up with your page over here. I hope that made sense. So again, if you would rather use your glue, you can. I am going to use score tape because I always like to put my main pages down with score tape. And then I use glue for other things. It is just my personal preference to make sure I don't get any bubbling up or anything pulling up from the pages. So when you're doing this, and I'm using 3/8 on this, I could have used my 1/4 inch. What I'm going to do is, I went around the edges like a picture frame. I'll go one down the middle, and then I'm going to use my 1/4 inch actually. We are going to do the same with the one on the back, and I'm going to get my other one like this, my other inside cover, ready to go. But I'm going to show you how to do this first one, and then you can do the other one, and I'll show you how that's done too. So I'm just going to get the score tape backing off. Hello, come on. And I think you can see this. I'm going to line up over there, make sure I'm covering over here, and I'm straight. That looks right. And I'm a little off, but that's all right. Not going to be able to tell once I get this all done. And I'm just going to go around and burnish really well. I don't know if you can hear that snapping, and that's the air getting out from underneath that tape. Okay, apply your score tape to this one, and we're going to be doing exactly the same thing. Leaving at least probably about 1/4 inch or so and lining up with the page, this page that we placed in there. Just make sure that you don't get near your scoring, your hinge there. And then we're going to start doing our reinforcements. Alright, let's grab all of our little 1/2 inch by 9.5 inch reinforcements. So how this is going to play out is we're going to be placing our 3/8 inch score tape along this. And I'm here at the front of the album, but you're going to line it up with the top of your album and the bottoms. And we're going to be placing that down. So on each let's go with 5 of them to start. This last one is going to be for the top end, so I guess let's lay our score tape on each one of these, and then we'll just clip off what we need off the 6th one. So you'll want to make sure any writing is the side that you're putting the score tape on. And we'll just keep placing it down these long pieces. And what this is going to be is just a secondary reinforcement of those page hinges, so that make sure, because we will have some weight on some of these pages, that we just want to make sure the album spine and the page hinges stick on down to it. And this is just a backup just in case. I like to do that on larger albums that have heavier pages. So we'll just burnish, make sure we get that burnished down. We'll clip off any score tape on these. Put these down. And that one looks pretty good. Alright, I'm going to do this one at a time here. So here is my inner pages, and by the way, when I reference page 1, 2, and all that, page 1 is the inside cover. Page 2 would be this. 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. We do it just like we're reading a book. So I'm going to bring this closer to me. Hopefully you can see. Get my coffee out of the way. That wouldn't be good if I splashed it. And here is my first hinge, page hinge. So I'm going to go all the way to the top. Make sure you don't get on that score line. And I'm going to place it towards the edge of that, the left-hand edge, and bring it all the way down. And then we're going to burnish that really good, especially down in this area and up here in this area. And we will flip the page. So we're going to do that with each one of these on the inside between the pages. Lay them all down. And then our last one right in there. And then we'll have one left over, and we're going to do that, tackle that together. So let's first get this all done. Alright, so each one of us may have placed ours a little bit differently, so that's where this is going to come into play here. So all I'm going to do is measure from the side, where the side of this, all the way over to the last one. So I'll bring it down just a little bit, and I could make a small light pencil mark to make sure that this covers. Again, I need to throw that away. Tanner ate my pencil. And if you'd like to go over just a little bit more, you can. I'm just going to go towards the edge there, and I'm going to hand clip and place it. And since I did lay that, I think I'll clip my second one as well. Even it up with this, and hopefully it will be the same. So when we're placing this, make sure you do not hit your pages. You don't want it to do that. Just take it all the way down to the bottom of your page and place it. Now we will be having some lace to cover up some of that, so we just want to make sure that this is down pretty good and it's not interfering with turning our pages. So I think I got mine down pretty good there. I'm going to flip this around. Let me see how I did over here with this cut. That looks pretty good. I'm going to get the, where's my eraser? Make sure I'm straight. And if you don't get this quite on straight across the bottom or so, again, we will be placing some lace up there to fix that. Alright, so we have completed the base album, And that is what it looks like here. That is what it looks like up there. And we are ready to move into decorating the outside of this cover. We are on decorating the outside of the album. All right, so we have our single sheets. However, we're going to be taking the cover off each one of our paper packs. And the reason why is we want to get at this print. And we want the one that is on this. So we're going to grab that, put that off to the side. So in my tutorials, I try to stay consistent on how to tell you to measure your paper. I usually start over here and tell you to measure over this way instead of measuring up, down, and all over, and it just keeps us consistent. We're going to be cutting for the front cover, so we are going to turn our paper looking at it sideways. We're going to measure over 9 3/8 inch and cut. So I'm going to grab my cutter, kind of help you along. So 9 3/8. Now all your leftover pieces like this we're going to put in a scrap pile. The scrap pile is called our reserves because we're going to reserve this to use in the book at a later time to save. So this is what we should have. We're going to turn it upside down so the bird is upside down. We're going to measure over 10 7/8 inch and cut. So I'm going to get that right on there. And this little piece here is going to go into our reserves. So one thing I would like you to do right now is to grab your book, and if you were to place this down, you can center it right on in there, and it should give you a nice white border, and that's what you want. So that's going to be for our cover. So let's get our score tape, and I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch for this, I think, and we're just going to place it on this side of the paper, and we're going to go all the way around like a picture frame. Around the edges there. And you can tear off at the end and then start going down the next side. Sometimes when you do go around the corners you do get a little lump from it, but I like doing it this way and it's not that big of a deal for me. Alright, this is a rather large piece, so we're going to go one down the middle. And we're going to go 3 on each side of that point. So 1. We're going to burnish that down really good. Okay, so I'm going to remove the score tape backing. Now here is a tip that I learned. Because score tape is not forgiving, sometimes it's easier once you get the score tape to off the backing to do some glue right in the corners so that when you put it down it's still maneuverable. So I'm going to get this off. Okay, I'm going to, since this is a very large album, I am going to put some glue in the corners here just in case I need to maneuver it. And if you want to put a thin line around here, you can do that. So I'm going to get this on here. And I don't want to get my head in the video, so I'm going to do the best I can. Trying to stay even. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to open up my book, making sure that I don't crease my inner pages any. So I took about a week off from crafting to make a bunch of masks, and so I'm kind of glad to be back at what I'm doing here. This is my anxiety relief by crafting. So that is what yours should look like. We're going to flip this on over. Let's grab our next piece. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to measure over 9 3/8 inch and cut. This piece, put in your reserves. We'll need that here in a moment. And then I think for this, I think we're going to measure from this side now, looking at the bird where it's supposed to be, the right way. Measure over 10 7/8 inch and cut. All right, let's flip it over. Score tape goes around the outside like a picture frame. 1 down the middle and 3 strips on either side. And we're going to place this on the back of our album together. I've got the score tape backing off the back of my print. Now one thing, so you don't place this upside down, make sure your book is going the right way. So just kind of flip it over. Otherwise, if you're like this, you're going to put it on backwards. So again, we're just going to do the same thing, and that is trying to get this even on there as best we can. That looks pretty good. Now we'll just burnish that down really good. All right, we're going to reach into our reserves, which is our scrap pile. And this is pretty. This is the one that has back here. All right, so this is the one I have. If you flip it over, it has at the bottom there, and I have the rose centered more to the left. We're going to measure over 9 3/8 inch and cut. So that's what we should have. Let's put score tape around the outside like a picture frame, and we can go 1, 2 in the middle. And we're going to place this together. All right, so the rose should be facing up, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my book and I'm going to split it open, make sure I don't crinkle those. And I'm going to try and line that up right in the center there as best I can. And I think that's good enough. So mine is on. Now one thing is for right now, I want to see how this looks with our print, but your sheer, your wider, the one that's going to be pinched in the middle on the cover and going over the top. I have 2 12-inch strips, and I might have a third one for the spine. I want to just kind of take a look. So what I'm going to do is make sure I am centered in there, so somewhere around 6 inches, and I'm going to pinch it together. Just make sure that you're in the center there, and I'm going to place some of my fabric glue. This is going to get covered up, but all we want to do is just kind of pinch it in the center. If you have a little binder clip or something, that would be helpful. And if you don't get it exactly, that's okay. So we just want to help it along there. And I think I'm going to need a little binder clip. And little binder clips or clamps work great. Just enough, and you can always pinch it more. Somewhere in the middle there. Kind of pinch it, and we're going to clamp these. So we're going to give that a moment to dry. So it may not grab completely, but it'll be good enough for what we're going to be doing here. And mine did okay. All right, so here's the front of our album, and what we're going to do is have equal hangover on each side here. And we're just going to wrap that back behind. We'll open that up, and we're going to glue that down. Just like that. So I'm going to grab this because it's pretty good glue here. And if it shows up on anything, then I will cover it up. So I'm just going to let that dry. And I'll do the same down here. pretty sticky already. All right, I'm going to do the same with the back here. I'm going to be very careful that I don't get my pages in there. I'm just going to turn this to the back, and I will center this in there as best I can with equal overhang, trying to match up the same spot that I had those. And I think that right about here is good. And I'm going to do the same thing. So if you're still wet, just stick something there. And we'll let this dry. I'm going to take a look at that here in just a minute. I've got glue. I've got to go wash my hands. It looks like I need to shimmy this over just a little bit if I can. If it's going to let me. Good enough. So I'm going to let that dry. I think I'm dry enough. So I'm going to clip another piece of this. And we're going to put this on differently. It's actually, here's the front. Here's the top of this. So I'm going to turn this sideways so I can see what I'm doing. And I will get this in the middle after I'm done doing this. So I'm going to glue it down, making sure I don't get it on here. And try to center it there. Just be very careful. You're going to have to let that set and dry. And then we'll wrap it around once that's dry. Now, if you get any goo or whatever up here, don't worry about it because we can lay our lace right on the top and we can always put something on there. Once you have your spot, I can then wrap it down. And that looks pretty good there. I'm going to split this open. Now for this, what's going to happen is I'm going to gather it in the middle. Trying to get even with here. So I think right about here is good. Do the best you can. It really, if you don't get it exactly, I think it's going to be okay. Just gather it there. And I'll grab a clamp. I think right about like that, and let that dry for a moment. And then you should have, since we cut this one at 12 inches, we will cut that, once this is dry, we will make sure it wraps around and we'll take a peek at how much we need. So once you have that, all we're going to do is flip this over. We're going to pull it. And this is where we're going to cut it down to fit. So you make sure it does not interfere with your pages. And you'll want to cut it, so I know mine. Just so that you have enough. And then I'm going to use some of this glue and I'm going to tack it down there. Just like that. Now make sure you don't get it on your page and stuff, but just kind of do the best you can. And you'll hold it. As long as it isn't touching the top of your pages, you'll be okay because we're going to be placing some lace or something over this anyway. So we're going to give that a moment to dry. So I have all of mine crinched up and I undid my little thing. Let's grab one of our flat rhinestones, or if you don't have something like that, you can just use a, I'm going to open this up, use a button if you want. So for this, I think I'm going to grab actually a scrap piece of my cardstock. And I'm going to cut around it first. I think that is the best bet. Just kind of cut around it until you can't see the paper anymore. And that's going to help it actually hold on to the back of this gem a lot better. Grab my glue here. Place it on the back. Hello, come on out. And we will place it there. And you can always trim up anything while the glue is setting to kind of get that off there. That's going to help it a lot more to grab on. Oh, it looks like I had two pieces there. Wow. So that's going to help it a lot better to grab on. We're going to go to the middle. And we are going to use, since we have fabric there, I'm going to try this fabric tack to see how that works. If it doesn't grab onto the paper that well, then so forth. But I have a feeling it will because it has been. And I'm just going to stick that in the middle. And I'm going to clamp it down with my clamp. And you can use binder clips for that. And we're going to give that about 10 minutes to dry. In the meantime, I'm going to set this off to the side and we're going to get ready to do our frame. So there are two options here, whether you had a frame or not, and I will show you if you don't have any frame what you'll be doing here shortly. In your paper pack, I would like you to grab out the panel sheet here with all the frames on the back. That's this one. Carefully remove that. What we're going to do with this is stick this on our paper cutter, and we're going to cut out and around each one of these to separate them all. And I'll show you what mine looks like. I have all my little panels cut out. The one that you want for your frame, if you're doing a frame, if not, I will guide you through that, is take time to smell the roses. So I'll set that to the side. These I'm going to stick in its own little pile so I can grab at those when needed. If you do not have a frame, cut a 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 inch white piece of cardstock. What you're going to do is you're going to apply glue to this, and you are going to center that, giving yourself a white frame around it. And then what you'll do is you will burnish that down. Okay? Those of you that have a frame, check to make sure that you can reach side to side. And I do with this one. It's pretty wide here. So I'm just going to kind of center that on in there with the flowers. And I'm going to cut around this as needed. And that should fit. Just like that. These little things, I'm just going to stick in reserves in case I need a little strip. And, oh, I am about out of glue here. So all I'm going to do is kind of put some glue around the back of my frame, and I'll glue that little piece down. Right about there is good. And I can see I need to trim a little down here. So before the glue sets, just make sure that's down. Okay, frame is ready. I am going to refill my little bottle here. Oh, by the way, this is just a little tool that made up. It's a DBS tool. It is specifically designed for the lids on art glitter or some of the other ones that are the same width. I just kind of created this. This little tool, you do not pull out, you will snap it. It's just meant to go right over and slide, and then it's easier to get those glue bottle tips off. Yeah. And you just, so that you can refill. That's just a little tool made up. In case some of you have the same problem with wrenching on things. Matter of fact, I have an old bottle that is very stuck, and hopefully this will do the job for me. Yep, it does. So in case you're needing something, if you can't do it by your hand, that's just something I have extra in the shop. We're going to get our frame on there, or in case you have just the panel here, what you're going to do is you're going to apply your glue and you're going to center it right on in there between this and this. So I'm going to get something to try and prop this up a little bit for us. And it looks like I got something here. Some score tape under there. I think that's good like that. So you'll just center it top to bottom, side to side if you have the panel. If not, you will use the frame. So I'm going to glue this frame down. And I'm going to stand up to make sure I can see what I'm doing here. I think right about there would be good. I'm going to lift this up so I can see, so I can get this on straight. I think that's good right there. It's already starting to grab, that's for sure. Alright, so what we're going to want to do now is get some of our lace out. And the lace is just going to be some accents. And I'm not sure quite what I wanted to use yet, but that may be pretty. So I'm going to use the 2-inch wide, and I'm just going to cut a piece just a little bit off here. Now I have some flowers coming in, so that's what's going to cover up this. And I'm going to apply some glue. And we'll tackle that in a moment. Get some glue there. And just kind of place it down. Now you can use any lace you want, so this is what I'm going to be using. And I'm not going to worry about the ends being blunt like that on the side. I'm going to go with what I had, I think. Cut off a couple pieces here. And I can always trim off what I don't want. Just like that. Alright, flat back pearls. So I'm going to use the ivory dome, about 3/8 inch here. And I'm going to glue it down right in the center there. Now if you want to do like 3, you can. Got some glue on me. Like 3 right here you can, or up here. I'm just going to probably go in the center with mine. And because it's on some fabric, I think I will use this glue. See how it does. If not, I'll use my art glitter glue. Right in the center. When that's done drying, I'll flip it over and I'll do the same with the other one. I'm ready to arrange my flowers, and I'm just gonna stick some of these on here to start. And I have a flower right here. Put those 2 right there. So I'm just going to start laying some of these. Got some smaller ones. I think I'm going to glue them down just kind of like that. Get some of these smaller ones in here. Now, if you're not making your own flowers, on the materials list, I will have some packaged flowers that would look lovely with this. But I think I'm going to do something like this on mine. I might put one off to the side. Tuck that back in there. Something like that. So I'm going to get this all glued down and I will show you what it looks like. So I've got my flowers and they are still trying to dry right now. But in the meantime, I think I want to add some lace. And it looks like I just dipped my lace in my coffee, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to cut off that piece. Have you ever done that before? Your lace get caught in your coffee? Oh my gosh, that's not good. So I'm going to clip that off and get my coffee out of the way so I don't make that mistake again. However, I can use that lace, coffee dyed, in one of my junk journals. Alrighty, so I'm going to be using this lace, and I believe what I might want to do is run it on the bottom and the top. So what I'm going to do is just cut a piece to go from side to side here. And I'm not happy with myself for dipping that in the coffee. So I'm going to be short a little bit in the album because I did want to use this a little bit more. And I'm just going to do this on the front. So all I'm going to do is try to slip this underneath. I'll apply glue, of course, but just to go side to side, and it does not go past that. But that is what I'm going to be doing. And I think that will give it a very lovely look. So I'm going to glue that down really quick. So here is my cover. It came out lovely. I liked the way it looked. We are now on to page 1. And page 1 is the inside cover of our chipboard cover. Page 2 would be here. Page 3, 4, and so on. Just like reading a book. So let's begin. Grab the 1/2-inch lace that you're going to be using, and we're going to be gluing it down to the side. Now, you do not want to do wider than 1/2 inch because then your decorative paper is not going to fit. So what I'm going to do is grab a scratch piece of cardstock so you can see what I'm doing better. And page 1 is the cover. We are going to leave that alone. We're going to move on to page 2. And I'm going to slide that behind. So all I'm going to do is cut enough to make it side to side. There's one. If I need to trim that up more, I will. So there's one. And I'll just glue that down now. And I definitely need to clean the tip of this. Someone gave me a tip about the glue, and I think she said to use, I can't remember what she said. If you're watching this, please tell me again what to use to clean up some of the goop on the fabric tag. I can't remember, and I can't remember which tutorial you commented on. I'd like to know again. So just a little bit. And I'm going to place this. Okay, so there's our page 2. We're going to go behind page 4 now, and we're going to do the same thing. Again, you'll want 1 yard of your 1/2 inch because that's what we're going to be using, about a yard here. If you want to switch it up, though, if you don't have a full yard of your 1/2 inch, you can like alternate your pages with different lace. And I'll go back and trim off any excess that I don't need. Now if you get any excess like over on the side, you know, just try to clean it up the best you can. We're going to go behind this page now and we're going to do the same thing. And one last one here. And like I said, this was a yard. We have just enough here. Now before you're flipping the pages, you'll definitely want to make sure that you are dry enough so that your pages don't stick together. I probably should have checked mine. Alright, I'm going to trim off any extra that hangs over the page. I hope you're enjoying the tutorial so far. We take it nice and slow so that everybody can keep up to start. And then once we start doing the fold outs and pockets, maybe in the same way we've done the previous page, it gets a little faster because then you learn how to do that. So now my pages all look like this. Perfect. Alright, I'm going to set this off to the side and we're going to start cutting our decorative paper. And I don't know what's happening with this darn camera. I'm waiting on a replacement. Page 1 pre-cuts, and that is where you would have wanted to download the free PDF of the pre-cuts materials list. So let's go over these to make sure that I didn't make an error and you did not either. So our first one was a 7 by 8 1/4 inch. We called it a right fold out. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board so we were 7 inches across. Now my one starts over here. If yours starts over on this side, it's okay. You'll just turn your paper around for when we fit it. So all we did was we scored it at a 1/2 inch and we scored it at 5/8 inch. Next on our list we had two pieces that were 2 by 9 1/2, and we called these our fold out pockets, and we did not score these. Next thing on our list is we had a 8 1/4 by 9 3/4. We called it a left fold out. And all we did was lay this on our scoring board, so we were 9 3/4 inch across. We scored it at a 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch. We had a 5 1/2 by 7 1/2 inch, and we just called that our left panel. There is no scoring. We had a 2 1/2 inch by 4 1/2 inch folder. We laid this on our scoring board so we were 4 1/2 inches across, and right down the middle at 2 1/4 inches we scored. We also had a 3 1/4 by 3 1/2 inch piece, and we called that a small pocket. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board so we were we started at 3 1/2, and all we did was we scored it at a 1/2 inch. We turned it, so now we are 3 1/4 inches across. We scored at a 1/2 inch and 2 3/4 inch. The last piece was our plastic, and it was clear. Of course, we're not going to mark on it, but it was 6 1/4 inch by 8 1/8. Okay, let's begin by finding our decorated paper for our page 1. In your paper pack, you will find this beautiful print, and on the back, it's the bricks. So in my tutorials, and everyone that has taken them before know what I'm about ready to say, is that when I tell you to cut, I may have you turn it sideways. We always start from the left and go this way. So whether it be this way, so that we're not cutting down, up, over. I try to stay consistent so you know what's coming. And you'll want to make two scrap piles. I call them our reserve pile. So any leftover white cardstock from when you were cutting for your sheets, your pages, put that in a separate pile. Any leftover pieces, whether it be a small little skinny piece of your decorated paper, that goes in another one, and that will help us keep organized because we constantly grab into our reserve pile to use paper so it doesn't go to waste. Okay, let's start this off. Looking at your paper so that it is sideways like this, we're going to start over here. We're going to measure over 8¼ inches and cut. So I'm going to do these first cuts so that you are clear. So we want 8¼ inches. You'll have this piece left over that goes in our reserves. Alright, so for this one we're going to have 2 cuts because I want this centered on our page. So our first cut, we're going to measure over 1¼ inches and cut. This little piece will go in our reserves. Now this is easy. All we have to do is measure over 9½ inches and cut. And that'll be fairly close to being centered for us. So this is our base decorated page. And I'm just going to move this paper cutter back where it needs to go. The first thing I would like us to do is to grab our right fold out. That's the 7 by 7 or 7 by 8¼ excuse me. And we're going to fold on those score lines. And you'll want to get your tool out to help you out. And we will burnish that. And I'm not so sure I've got that straight, but it'll work. So the first thing that I want you to do is look over here on your score lines. You have an inside one and an outside. On that outside score line, what I'd like you to do is pinch and crease on it. Now what we're going to do is hook this on, and this will hook back behind. And get that straight on there. So once you have it in place where it's straight and it's even top and bottom, I want you to hold on to it, pinch it so it doesn't move, lay it down, and I like to put pressure down on the left hand side so it doesn't slip. If it slips around, you're definitely going to have to realign that. So now all we're going to do is apply some glue to this little flap here. Now one thing is, and you'll want to check this after every time, I may not show it, but you'll need to remember to do this. You'll want to pull over the flap, and we'll burnish that and wipe up any glue that seeps out. But what I'm talking about checking is once you do that, I want you to open it up immediately. Check to make sure no glue is seeping out in between, because then it's going to glue your page down. Okay, now we can fold on that other score line and we can press it until it feels flat, and it creates that. Let's grab our left fold out, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold on those score lines. The tool will help make those nice and crisp. Okay, so our hinge over here is going to be off to the left. On your outside score line, go ahead and pinch, and we're going to hook this back behind, and it should be even with your other one. That looks good to me, and that's where I'm going to hold on to that while I turn it over and keep my hand down so it doesn't slide. And we're going to glue this on. And then we're going to check for glue seeping once again. And that's what I'm talking about, is you may not see me do it, but definitely check, because glue has a way of making it all over the place. And then we're going to fold, check. Oh, I do have a little right there. And then we're going to fold back and press on the sides so that it makes a nice thing over there. Okay, so we have this. Now, if you get these on slightly crooked, don't worry, because your magnet that we do end up using will help to pull you a little straighter which way you want to go. And most of the time it has to do with over here how you've pushed it in. We're going to start with the inside of the album here. And I have my fold outs open. The very back piece of your paper pack, you will find this, and on the inside it looks like this. However, we're going to look at it where we can see this side, so we have the same leftovers. It's always easier when I'm grabbing into my reserves that when I show you a piece, for instance, you'll see the front little piece or whatever's left over. I can turn it over and it's easier for you to identify which piece I'm grabbing at. If you are doing this with your own paper, one thing is a good tip to follow along is if I'm grabbing a fresh sheet from the paper pack, you should be too. If I'm grabbing from the reserves, you should be grabbing from reserves. And that will help manage your paper as well, unless you just want to go for it and start cutting. So we're going to begin cutting this. We're going to turn it sideways, measure over 8 inches, and cut. This is what you should have. We'll just stick this piece in our reserves. Now we're going to measure over 6 1/8 inch and cut. We'll just stick that in our reserves. This is what we have left. Let's verify we fit. And it's always good after every cut to do that, to make sure that you didn't do a miscut. But if you were to place this inside that panel, here is that inside score line. You'll want to stay away from that. So in between that inside score line and the right hand side of your white cardstock, you'll center that in there. So top and bottom as well. And you'll have a white border around that. Now that we checked, what we're going to do is just pull this off to the side and work with this. We're going to grab our fold out, one of our fold out pockets. And we'll have our paper here, so we're this way and longer, 8 inches tall this way. Let's grab our 1/4 inch score tape. And what we're going to do is come over to the right hand side of this panel, and we're going to lay a strip of that score tape. And we're definitely going to want to burnish that down. And I'm going to show you how this is done on this style of pocket. And get that score tape backing up. So I'm going to turn mine, it's easier so I don't get my face or my head in the video. But here is the score tape. I'm going to give a slight little bend, and I'm going to bring this all the way over to the edge of my paper. And if you notice, I have equal overhang of white cardstock off of this page. And that's what you're going to want, because we're going to wrap these flaps. So I'm going to bring it all the way over. And then I'll just press in the middle and press out. And then we will burnish that. So that's what you should have. What we're going to do now is flip this over, and we're going to fold in those flaps. And using your tool is very helpful to get a nice little crease. And now we just add our glue and glue down these little flaps. Make sure those are stuck down pretty good. And there is our little side pocket. So let's find our paper for this. Remember those two long skinny pieces that came off the sides of our main page? Well, we're going to make good use of those. So you should have two of them. They look like this. We're just going to stick them together, double them up, and we're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. After making that cut, this is what you're going to have. So I'm going to glue one down to the left first, and I'm going to leave just a little bit of white showing there. And it's always best to get your panel first rather than on the white cardstock with your glue. Some glue there. And we'll just fit that on there. Okay, for this one is going to overlap. And we'll bring that to the side, and we're going to glue that down and burnish it down. So this is my 1 1/4 inch. This is the flower banner, and I'm going to cut a strip to go top to bottom, and that'll cover up that little seam. And I'm going to glue that down. And I'll see, or I'll get up any glue. And I'm going to allow that to dry. So I think that those scraps worked very well. And you really can't see the seam too much. Okay, while that's drying, I can definitely get this down. And remember, steer clear of that score line, because if you get it on there, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to shut this. So I want to make sure that, I think I need to put my magnet down first. And I do. What I've done is I made an album for my son Darren and his wife Jessica. And I am duplicating some of those designs in this album. And people would ask for a tutorial, and so a lot of those designs are going to be using that. But I think we'll put actually we're going to put the thing on the outside. I think that's what I want to do. So let's just glue this down, and then we'll put the magnet on over, and then we'll cover up that magnet. I think that's how I want to do it. So we'll just use glue for this to conserve on our score tape. I usually do the score tape on the base sheets so that I don't use more than necessary. And I think I got that on pretty straight. So we'll burnish that down really good. Alright, let's grab a couple magnets. I'm going to grab a plus and a minus. And I'm just going to place this here, and I think right about here would be good. Somewhere in the middle there. Okay. Next, what I'd like you to do is to take the mate and flop it on top there. And we will remove this backing. Now, to help you line up, this is why I do the one on top of the other. We're going to pull this side in. Make sure it's where it needs to be. If you need to pull it up, down to get it where it even, do so. But now what we're going to do is bring this over. Now when you bring this over, don't pull. You want it to be able to fall naturally. If you have to push it up to make it work better, to line up, fine. Once you do that, you will press and then carefully lift it, and then that's going to give us our fold out magnet on that side. Okay, so to cover that up, remember when we were cutting for our frame we had some scraps? Well, this is a great time to use something like this. And we're just going to draw a little heart and do the best you can. If you have a little template, great, but your heart needs to be at least probably a good 1 inch tall and about maybe 1.25 inches wide, if we can get that out of this. It may be short, just about wide. So I'm just gonna do the best I can here and try to draw this heart. It does not have to be perfect. And that may not even be the size I said, but I'm going to go with it. If you have a heart punch, use it. And then I'm just kind of going around here. And then I can erase any pencil mark off that. So we'll just use that to cover up the magnet. Just stick it there. And that's it. We'll let that dry. Alright, let's cut for the inside over here. Grab the back sheet of your other paper pack. And we're going to kind of do the same thing. Looking at it like this, we're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. This is what you should have after making that cut. Let's measure over 8 7/8 inch and cut. I want to check myself on that measurement, so I'm going to flip this over and see if I gave myself enough room between that outside score line and I still have a border. And I do. So that works. We're going to set that off to the side. And we're going to grab that other fold-out pocket, the 2 by 9 1/4. And on this one, we're going to make sure that your shingles are going the same way as you have them on this page, so that they're not upside down. Okay, this goes to the left side, and these scraps from our little heart will just do that. And we're going to do the same thing we did before with this style of a pocket. There's so many different styles and ways to do pockets, and you'll be learning a few of them in this tutorial. Okay, I'm turning it now because I don't want to get my head in the video, but here is where my score tape is. I'm going to give a little bend, make sure I have equal overhang on each side, or close to. Line this up and press in the center. And out. And the reason why I like to do it like that is when I'm pressing out, this will kind of lift sometimes up on you and give you a little more room in that pocket. And we're just going to fold these over. I need to wash my hands. I got glue on them. And we're going to glue these flaps down. And we will do that. And over here. And there we have it. Okay, for this piece, what we're going to do is grab this out of our reserves. This is part of the cutting off the cover piece. On the back, it looks like this. But I want to get some color in here. Instead of going this way, because there's this and that, I think I want to use the color side of this. So first thing I would like us to do is measure over 8 inches and cut. I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, that's what we have. Now we need for the width on here. And I think what we're going to do is measure over 1 7/8 inch and cut. And I'm going to verify that this fits side to side, giving me a little bit of a white lip, and it does. So you can glue it down this way, or you can glue it down this way. I'm going to have it where it's like that. If you would rather use this, you can. But I'm going to try and keep more color in here like the other one. Okay, I'm going to use the same lace that I did on the previous page. I'm just going to cut a piece to fit. And I'm going to glue that down. And I'll mop up any of that glue. Let's see, which way am I going? This way. And I'm going to chop off up here where I have more than I need. I better get at it like this. There we go. Okay, that looks good. Let's grab our main page here. And we're on the inside of the fold out again, steer clear of that outside score line, and we're going to glue that down. And I think that looks so pretty like that. And then we will get this down, and you will burnish and wipe up any glue that seeps out so it doesn't glue your fold out down. I've had that happen. I've had it happen during tutorials, actually. So it can happen. I think that's pretty straight from what I can see. And just take the time to burnish it down really well. Alrighty, so what's going to happen is the left goes in first, and then the right goes over. So let's start with this side. In your paper pack, you will find this gorgeous print, and on the back it is this. First things first, we're going to turn it so it's sideways. We'll measure over 8 inches and cut. This is what you should have. We're going to stick this in our reserves. It's just beautiful paper. And now we're just going to turn it. It's upside down. And what was that measurement I wanted? Aha. Okay. Measure over 8 7/8 inch and cut. So now you are left with this, and this is the side we want. So what's going to happen is this is going to fit right on here like this. And we can actually glue that down now. Make sure my roses are going the right way. I don't think it makes a difference. I'm going to have my tea stain up here.